Could the Knoxville housing market be headed for a crash in 2025? Experts just released new data, and what we found might shock you. Stay tuned to find out if Knoxville real estate is on the brink. Hey everybody, this is Mark with Epic Outcomes by eXp here, your Knoxville-based solution for all things real estate. Today we're going to dig into some new data about the Knoxville housing market for 2025. I think it's going to be surprising, really. And whether you're a buyer, a seller, or investor, these are the things that you're going to need to know as you look at transacting this year. Quite literally, we're going to save you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars with this information. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Here's what we're going to cover. Home price trends, what's happening in Knoxville home prices through 2024 and into early 2025, how we compare to Tennessee and the rest of the nation. Spoiler, Knoxville's trend might surprise you. Are there more homes finally hitting the market? We're going to look at housing supply and what it means for buyers and sellers. With rates near 20-year highs, how is buying power affected? We'll see how rising or falling rates could change the Knoxville market. And what are economists saying? Are we in a bubble? And will prices crash? Or are we starting to see things stabilize? We've got the key forecasts. Finally, specific advice for buyers, sellers, and investors in Knoxville. Should you act now or do you need to wait? So let's dive in and find out if Knoxville real estate is poised for a crash or a calmer ride in 2025. So for one, let's talk about what's been going on in the Knoxville housing market. We've actually seen home prices double over the last 5 years. That's a tremendous growth. Now, despite that happening, we are still far more affordable than most markets. If you look at the chart on screen showing Knoxville's home price movement since 2018, you'll see a steep climb beginning around 2020. This surge was driven by huge buyer demand and ultra-low interest rates during 2021 and 2022. Now, by late 2024, Knoxville's median home price hit record territory, around $375,000, which was about 7 to 12% higher than the year before. Yes, prices still rose in 2024 despite higher interest rates, which is impressive. Knoxville was even named a top 10 housing hotspot nationally going into 2025. However, as we entered early 2025, the market showed some signs of cooling. January 2025 data indicates that prices leveled off and even dipped slightly on a seasonal basis. Median home sale price dropped to about $305,000, which is down 2% year over year. This small decline in a crash, it's really more of a market breather after the explosive growth that we've seen in the area. Now, Knoxville versus Tennessee and the rest of the U.S. How do we compare to everyone else? Overall, Tennessee's housing markets have been robust thanks to people moving in from other states. And that's all thanks to our low taxes and good jobs. Even so, Knoxville outperformed, for example, with 6 to 7% price growth, while nationally home prices were roughly flat to up just a few percentage on average. Some overheated cities, think big coastal markets, actually saw prices dip in 2024, but Knoxville kept rising. Our region's strong job growth and migration to the area provided a buffer against the national cool down. In short, Knoxville's been a rising star compared to many markets. So let's talk about another important factor is inventory. How much inventory is in the market? Because obviously, if we have an excess of homes in the market, we're going to see prices push down. If we have an absence of homes in the market, that tends to push prices up. And we've certainly seen prices on the rise. So where is inventory in the Knoxville market right now? Current supply in Knoxville has been rising. After years of super tight inventory, we're finally seeing more listings come on the market in 2024. In fact, by late 2024, the number of homes up for sale had risen almost 30% compared to the year prior. It's a pretty big jump, almost a shocking surge in inventory. For example, Knoxville's active listings in November 2024 were about 1,325 in Knox County, contributing to that 30% year-over-year inventory increase. This means buyers had more choices than the year before, which was easing those bidding wars we all remember from 2021. Now, we often measure inventory in months of supply. How long would it take to sell all the homes on the market at the current sales pace? Well, historically, 5 to 6 months of supply is considered a balanced market. Neither seller nor buyer favored. In the pandemic frenzy, Knoxville supply dropped to under 2 months. That is a super seller's market. In late 2024, inventory climbed to about 2.3 months of supply. And that's still a seller's market, but notably higher than the 1 month supply we had at some points in 2021. We're moving towards balance, but we're not there yet. Now, for buyers, rising inventory is a relief. You have more options and a bit more negotiating power than the ultra-competitive days. You might not have to waive inspections or bid $50,000 over asking now just to get a house. For seller, it means pricing and presentation are key. With more competition, your home needs to stand out on price and condition. It might take a little longer to sell on average, and Knoxville's median days on market in late 2024 was about 21 days, up from 12 days just a year earlier. Still pretty fast, but not the lightning speed that we saw before. So, no more listed Friday, 20 offers by Monday in most cases, especially if you overprice. To really understand Knoxville's dynamics, consider the bigger picture. In the mid-2010s, our market had plenty of listings. Buyers could be choosier. Then, post-2019, inventory collapsed to record lows, creating a severe supply crunch. Thanks to higher interest rates, which cooled some demand, and sellers gradually overcoming the lock-in effect. We'll talk about that more later. Listings are ticking up. However, we're still below normal inventory, so we have not flooded the market with excess homes like we did in 2007. In fact, experts say low inventory is still the biggest factor supporting price. That's a reason why a 2008 style crash is unlikely right now. There just aren't enough homes for a sale to trigger free fall in prices. So let's talk about mortgage rates for a second. One of the things that has drastically changed over the last couple of years is the rise in mortgage rates. And that's made a real difference on the affordability of homes for folks, with the climb in prices that we've seen and the change in interest rates. Where we were at roughly 3.5% just a couple of years ago, we're back up to a normalized 6.5% to almost 7%. And that really changes the ability of people to afford a home in today's market. As of early 2025, 30-year mortgage rates are hovering around 6.5% to 7%. Compare that to the crazy low 2.7 we had at one point in 2021, and yeah, it's shocking. Higher rates have been definitely putting a dent in affordability. But talk about a buying power check. For example, a $300,000 loan at a 7% interest rate means a monthly payment of roughly $2,000 principal and interest. That's $700 more per month than the same loan at 3%. Extra cost prices some buyers out and forces others to shop for cheaper homes. Affordability in Knoxville has therefore worsened compared to a couple of years ago. Wages are up, but not as fast as those mortgage costs. However, Knoxville started more affordable than many cities, which is in our favor. Median prices, still around $350,000, are still lower than the national median average. As a result, despite those high rates, folks are still finding ways to buy here, especially those moving from higher cost states. In fact, the National Association of Realtors noted Knoxville as among the top metros for millennial renters who can now afford to buy a home. And remember, a lot of buyers who were scared off in 2023 by that rate spike didn't vanish. They're just waiting in the wings. The moment rates dip a little, many are likely to jump back in. High rates tend to cool price growth, and we've seen that. Knoxville's price increases slowed in 2023 and early 2024 from the double-digit leaps of 2020 to 2022. Essentially, expensive financing equals a more modest price movement. More importantly, prices haven't crashed because, as we mentioned, inventory is still tight and local demand is strong. Many sellers also won't sell unless they get a good price. They're often trading a low-rate mortgage for a higher one if they move. This is the so-called rate lock-in effect. That has kept supply in check. So let's talk about those mortgage rates. This is the real factor that people don't know, and even experts are divided on where they think they're going to go next. But here's a couple of thoughts on the matter. Optimistic scenario involves economists thinking relief is coming. Mortgage Bankers Association of America, for example, forecasted rates could dip to around 5.9% by the end of 2025. If inflation continues to ease, the Fed might cut rates, which in turn could bring mortgage rates down. Some of the recent moves that we've seen in the stock market, prices moving down on most of the S&P 500 and the Dow, it does look like there is a light recessionary influence coming, and that is likely to push rates down. Even NAR's chief economist Lawrence Yun expects rates around 6%. He believes that that'll boost home sales in 20 major markets. On the other hand, forecasts were recently revised to be less rosy. As of late 2024, MBA adjusted their outlook, saying rates might stay in the mid 6% range. Why? Well, we continue to see some sticky inflation. Think about the eggs. And economic uncertainties could keep mortgages elevated. Basically, we may not see sub 5% rates again for a while. For Knoxville buyers and sellers, this means plan for rates around current levels for the near term, but keep an eye on the trend. If rates fall, more buyers are going to enter the market. Good for sellers, tough for buyers due to competition. If rates stay high or even tick up, buyers will have to stretch and the market could stay slower, which could pressure prices slightly, at least keep appreciation low. It's a balancing act right now between rates and prices. So now that we've talked about a bunch of the factors that are feeding into what's likely to happen in 2025, let's come to a conclusion and put on our fortune teller hats, or actually let's listen to the experts. Here's a couple of thoughts about what they think is going to happen for Knoxville and the surrounding areas as 2025 unfolds. Consensus among experts is no, this is not 2008 all over again. Unlike the mid-2000s bubble, today we don't have a subprime lending fiasco or massive overbuilding in Knoxville. Instead, we have real demand, that's people moving here and needing homes, a genuine shortage of supply. One report put it, experts don't believe we're in a bubble or headed for a crash like the Great Recession. The nation is still suffering from too few houses. In short, no bubble burst in the cards, barring some major economic crisis. Now, price forecast. Weather calling for stabilization or modest growth in the Knoxville prices, not a crash. For instance, a recent East Tennessee market forecast predicted Knoxville home prices will grow around 2 to 3% this year. That's a lot slower than the past couple of years. It's growth nonetheless. National Association of Realtors similarly predicts very mild price gains nationally, call it 2%. Basically in line with inflation, so value is likely to flatten out some, giving incomes a chance to catch up. That's a good thing. Crucially, local Knoxville experts say a significant price decline is unlikely given the factors at play. The word is deceleration. That's slower growth, not a sharp drop. Remember, even if we had a quarter or two where prices dip a few percent, that is far cry from a crash. It might actually be healthy long-term market because it prevents a bubble. And we expect more inventory and more sales in 2025, and that's in line with general local expectations. East Tennessee Realtors forecast home sales to climb about 8 to 9% this year as more buyers come back and owners are finally deciding to sell. More inventory is actually a good thing in this context as it's expected to loosen up the logjam without crashing prices. Knoxville, the lock-it effect, and that's owners sitting on low mortgages and not moving again, is anticipated to ease some. A lot of people without ultra-low rates, and that's new residents and first-time buyers, which means our market might have more movement than some others. In fact, Knoxville was ranked 8th in the country for expected housing market strength. Why? Well, strong migration and more first-time buyers and a solid local economy. Nearly 50% of people moving to Knoxville are buying, not just renting, and that's fueling that growth. Plus, our homeowners have built tons of equity with recent price gains. They're generally in a good position. They're not desperate sellers. All these factors point towards overall market resilience. As we said before, it's important to have a couple of key metrics that you're paying attention to because that's what's ultimately going to decide whether it's time to buy, sell, or invest. Here's a few key metrics you should be keeping your eyes on as you decide what you're going to do next. Mortgage rates. As discussed, if they spike above 7 to 8%, that can really squeeze buyers and put downward pressure on prices. If they drop, we could see a mini boom in sales. Again, inventory levels are key. Keep an eye on how many homes are for sale. If Knoxville's inventory supply suddenly jumps way above what our recent norm is, let's say we go to 7 or 8 months of supply, it would signal a potential price correction. But if it rises gradually into the 3-4 month range, that's a sign of normalizing, and that's a healthy market. Now, local economy and jobs, we have a healthy unemployment rate that's low, wage growth, and population trends that are positive. Job growth has been strong, around 9% over the past 5 years. And people are moving here because we have great opportunities. East Tennessee's population growth has been roughly twice the national average. If we keep adding jobs and residents, housing demand will stay solid. Conversely, if a recession hits and jobs were lost, it could soften demand. Again, that would probably need to be an extended recession, not a market correction. Are people able to afford homes? Well, if prices outpace income too much, that puts a cap on price growth. One metric, the Affordability Index, has been at its worst in decades nationally. But it should improve as rates and prices stabilize. Also, rental market health. Knoxville's rental occupancy is around 95%. It's extremely high. It means that people can't buy, they're renting. And investors are finding value in buying homes to rent out. That's put a little bit of price pressure on those available homes. Occupancy and rising rents for 2025 support those home values as well, enticing investors and making sure there's not a surplus of empty homes. Bottom line is, most experts believe that Knoxville's housing market in 2025 will be balanced to slight growth, not a dramatic bust, regardless of what you're seeing in the national news. The shock is in the data that despite those high rates and recent cooling, our market is poised to stay strong. It's not as overheated as before. All right, so now that you've got all the facts, all the figures, you know what key metrics to look for, Let's talk about what you should be doing depending upon your situation. Whether you're a buyer, a seller, or an investor, here's a couple of thoughts around what you should be doing as 2025 progresses and what you should expect going into that situation.
Here's our practical tips on things. For home buyers, do I buy now or should I wait? We hear this all the time. Here's my take. If you find a home that fits your needs and a budget now, strongly consider buying rather than timing the market. Why? Experts don't think a major crash is coming, so waiting for prices to drop could be a big time that you're waiting. Well, you'd be missing out on building up equity. Plus, if interest rates do fall later, home prices might actually tick up again due to renewed competition. And let's be honest, once you buy the home, you're probably going to have an opportunity to refinance it if those rates do drop in a meaningful way. If that happens, well, you've already locked in a great price, and now you're going to lower your monthly note. It's a positive. But it's wise to budget for the current rates. Don't overstretch assuming that refi is going to bail you out. Negotiate on the price and repairs. It's your turn to have a little leverage as a buyer because we have not had that in this market for a while. If you're a first-time home buyer, focus on affordability and maybe look at areas just outside those hot neighborhoods so you can get a better deal. Knoxville's market is still competitive, but you definitely have more breathing room now than a couple years ago. And we are seeing an expansion of those strong areas. So being on the fringes now might be the center soon. Now, for sellers, if you're a homeowner thinking of selling, now is a great time to list, but with some caveats. Prices are near all-time highs, and buyer demand in Knoxville is still solid. Selling sooner rather than later could actually help you lock in those gains before the market normalizes further. That said, manage your expectations. In 2025, you're likely not going to get the 10 offers in 2 days, all over asking. A home might sit on the market for a few weeks and buyers may negotiate. Data shows about 40% of homes in late 2024 sold at or above list, whereas a year prior, it was higher. So it's still possible to get a great price, but only if you price your home realistically. Overpricing in this market is risky and buyers have more options now than they've had in the past. Before listing, take time to prepare your home. Take care of those minor repairs. Put some fresh paint up. Make sure you spend money on great listing photos. This is all going to help you stand out. Also consider your next move. If you sell, are you buying another home in Knoxville? Remember, you're going to be re-entering a market as a buyer at those higher interest rates. One strategy to keep in mind, if you have a lot of equity, you could sell now and perhaps rent temporarily or move in with family, hoping for rates to drop by the time you buy again. Or if you're moving out of the area, you're in a strong position to capitalize on Knoxville's high values. Overall, it's still a seller's market here, just a slightly more patient one. If your home is priced right, it's going to sell. There are plenty of buyers waiting for good homes. Now, for our investors, Knoxville remains a hot market for investors, but you'll need to play it smart in 2025. On the plus side, rental demand is through the roof. Vacancy rates are super low, around 4% or less, and rents are trending positive. Our region's population growth and high occupancy mean if you buy a rental property, chances are you're going to find tenants quick. Also, home price growth is slowing, which could present better buying options. You might snag a deal as some sellers get more motivated in a cooling market. Cash flow versus appreciation. Well, with higher interest costs, make sure any deal can at least break even on cash flow at today's rates, or have a plan to add value. Renos, Airbnb, multi-unit strategies, you know the game. Don't bank on double-digit appreciation. Instead, look at long-term fundamentals, location, employment centers, schools, the things that keep demand strong. Knoxville's economic growth and quality of life continue to draw people, so owning a property here is still a solid play. If you're a flipper, be cautious with your ARVs. The days of assuming 10% jump in value in 6 months are over. Price homes you flip to sell quickly in a market where buyers are more rate sensitive. If you're a buy and hold landlord, this could be a good window to buy before the crowd returns, especially if rates dip. Consider diverse property types. Single-family rents are great, but multifamily or even small commercial mixed use in emerging Knoxville neighborhoods might yield better cap rates right now. Always do your homework. Look at those neighborhood comps, rental rates, and don't hesitate to negotiate on properties that have sat on the market. There may be deals to be had on stale listings. In summary, whether you're buying, selling, or investing, the key is staying informed and agile. The market is shifting from the red-hot pace of the last few years into something more normalized, and that shift can work to your advantage if you adapt your strategy.
So in the end, the Knoxville market is truly resilient. It's actually starting to become a very balanced market, but one that you can succeed in if you're patient and pay attention. So whether you're a buyer, a seller, or investor, Knoxville is a market that you probably want to be looking at very closely and paying attention. If you are looking for more information or want someone to bounce ideas off of, give us a call. Epic Outcomes by EXP. My name is Mark Brewer. All the information is right below. Feel free to shoot us a text, set up a call. We'd love to talk to you about fulfilling your real estate needs in 2025.
So, recap, Knoxville's housing market in 2025 is not looking like a crash. Latest data shows that we are in a resilient market that's cooling off from those slight extremes, but still on very solid footing. Prices have risen, but are leveling out, and inventory is improving, but not excessive. Experts are predicting a stable, possibly growing market versus a bust. Mortgage rates remain the big question, but even here, the outlook isn't dire, nor going to vacillate drastically. And any rate relief could actually boost our market. For home buyers, that means the opportunity is for those who are prepared. For sellers, it means you can still win, just maybe not overnight. And investors, you should still be shopping all over the Knoxville market because there are opportunities abound. Now, if you found this information useful, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth real estate updates. We'll be posting regular insights on Knoxville real estate trends as well as the broader Smokies market. You don't want to miss upcoming market updates. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about Knoxville's housing market? Are we going to see a crash? Do you disagree with what the experts are saying? Hey, drop a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you have about buying and selling in this market. We are happy to respond and provide you any additional data that you need to make an informed decision. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, knowledge is power in real estate, and you've just gained a ton of it. Until next time, this is Mark Brewer with Epic Outcomes, your Knoxville real estate team of choice. Saying stay informed and stay real estate savvy. We will see you in the next video.